Hey everyone, it's Mary Ann with Akashic Inspiration, and today I'm doing a past life reading for Silvy0319. Now, today's reading is extremely fascinating. She asked me to go back to a previous life where she believes she had connections with the Templar Knights. And she does. You do. And I have to say this as a forefront. When you are a light reader and you do readings for other people, there is so much information that also these souls or these people that are in your path come to you for a specific reason. And I think that this is what this past life reading is showing, how she and I are connected and what our connections have been. And it's really fascinating for me as a reader to also get all this information for myself. And I think as a reader, most of us could say that the messages are for us as well, because we all are one and we all are united. Okay, so the first thing that I see, the date comes to me of 1124 AD. In 1124 AD, Hugues de Payns was the Count of Champagne. He basically went to create on to be the first Grand Master of the Knights Templar. You have a connection to him. In 1128, he went to England and was there ceded lands by the King of Scotland to create the Rosslyn Chapel, and as well as lands by the King Henry I, I believe, of England. I mean, you really have to get into your. I'm going to post a website where I got some of this information, but you're going to have to do some more reading on your own as well, because it's vastly intricate. There were a group of women dedicated to St. Anne, and I believe that you were among those that were dedicated to St. Anne. Now, St. Anne, if I am not mistaken, was the mother of Mary. They, as we know, the Knights Templar had a great devotion to the Virgin Mary. And in I kind of, sometimes this doesn't go chronologically, so I'm going to tell you exactly how I saw it, and that way you can understand. I saw that this group of women were dedicated to praying exclusively for the Templars. They lived their lives in contemplation. Every act had a meaning, and this really ties into my blog of today. They would tend gardens and herbs. They would study lore. They would study mysteries. They would study the information that was brought back from the Holy Land, supposedly the sacred scrolls of sacred geometry, along with the monks, to decipher the information so that it would have value to the Templars and to the church and to their crusades. That you would commune with the Virgin for wisdom and fortitude. At this point, there was still a lot of mixture of what is Catholicism and ancient mother wisdom, okay? Even though it was shrouded under the auspices of the church, there was still the feminine energy very strongly present. You would do ceremonies with the monks, joining the masculine and feminine energies to raise the vibratory light of being, to provide strength of will and shields of light and love and mystic alchemies for the Templars. In one ceremony, I saw that the Templars were in a ring of circle around these ceremonies, and you were actually linked up to a particular Templar knight, and in this case, you were linked up to Hugues de Payns. Okay, the men actually did the spell, but the wisdom and the blessing came from the women with incense of myrrh and frankincense that were brought from the Holy Lands. I know it's a lot of information, so I want to get it, in as quickly as possible. You would cover the cover and security protected by circle of knights sworn to protect each. Had a bond with one maid. It was physical, spiritual, and mental. You would prepare all of the supplies that night needed. In other words, with the loving infusion of sacred prayers, for safekeeping of the clothing, of the armor, of the supplies that he would take with him. It came to me that Glastonbury tour Okay, now I'm going to go deviate a little bit to show you what our connection is. I've been told that one of my ascended masters, and one of the ones that I had a great participation in, is with Saint Bernard. Saint Bernard is Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. Clairvaux, he was a Benedictine monk who kind of split off a little bit from the Benedictines to create what is now known as the Cistercians. And these were the monks that were, of course, united with the Templar Knights. That's how they were known. And Saint Bernard was a big supporter of the Templar Knights. He's actually the one that went to the Pope to create the official order for Hugues de Payns. And at one point, they even had over 500 monasteries in England. Now, as a side note, Glastonbury Abbey, which is, of course, located in Glastonbury near the Tor, is a Benedictine monk monastery. So, so that is my connection to you. I know that I had connections with Saint Bernard, who created this vast system of monasteries for the Knight Templars to work through. And so now I understand my connection to the Knights Templar. And your connection was that you were his lady, having met him in England, and that is definitely your connection with the Knights Templar, that you were basically his soulmate, okay? And you were, chosen for him. Now, what I've done is I've done a type of a cross spread, but what I did was I used only the major arcana of the Syrian Starseed Tarot, and then I pulled 3 cards from the art of the Eyes of the Soul Oracle for you, since that has a lot of Celtic information and Templar Knights. So let me go on to showing you the reading. Let's see if I can get this all in here so you can see. Now, the first card is your current position, which is the card of transitions. Now, this in the normal tarot deck is the card of death. But as we know, in this deck, it means the transition from a purely physicality to a spiritual you're going up into the light. So this is your time of ascension. I like to read a little bit about each one so that you have a better understanding. It says, the death card is probably also the most misinterpreted, as all too often is understood to mean a physical death. From this ancient tradition stems the superstition surrounding the number 13. It does indeed hold a very powerful influence over the collective unconscious of our species. From the starseed's perspective, death is merely transition from one form to another, from one reality to another, from one density to the next. While the transition key does imply that something is ending, it most definitely focuses on a new, perhaps unknowable beginning. It says, the light shines brightly, warmly, and inviting. It speaks in allegory of how death is not finality, but rather a shift to a new experience. Death, interpreted by the evolving starseed, is a change of form, but it is not an ending. Perhaps the most liberating of all spiritual understanding is the acknowledgement of our own immortality, which we can apply to all life. Nothing ends. It transmutes form. Even the densest matter, such as steel, eventually rusts and returns to the earth, and from that mineral deposit, new life arises. The key word is the powerful tool of transformation. Understanding it, Starseed is liberated from the confines of physical reality. So this is part of this ascension process that you're currently going through. Now I'm going to go down to what is the base. I'm not going to hit this card until the end, because I'm going to read it like Lee Harnish reads it. Now this is the base, and it is the strength card, which is beautiful because it really tells me about this allegory between you and this Knight Templar, that you as the physical form of the feminine and he as the strong tiger, and yet there is no fear between the feminine and the masculine, so it is a complete merging. So I believe that gives you the information that you have the strength of character within you to undergo all things, and that is your base, which is really important. Now, what is above you in the spiritual is the number 5 card, which is the guidance card in the starseed, and it's usually talks about the Hierophant being both a teacher and a student, which I think is totally appropriate in your situation. And it says um, um, the starseed knows that the connection to source needs no intermediary, and the ultimate measure of one's spiritual direction comes from within. Guidance is about honoring the spiritual tradition that have served humanity throughout time. It is in its quest to understand the spiritual meaning of life. Um, all that's holy is found within through the sacred connection they get directly from our own godliness. So it's how are you now co-creating your spiritual ascendancy? And that is through this rebirth and through your strength and the combining of the male and feminine energies. Now, what you have come out of in this case is the shadow. And the shadow is the number 15 card. And that is normally in the traditional tarot, the devil card. But the devil card talks about the shadow self, right? And it's got the web and these two figures that are kind of throwing a shadow against the wall, and they're down here. And it looks like a male and female shadow to me. And it says, um, the starseed knows that there is no such being as the devil. The shadow key does not depict one. Rather, we are shown a man and a woman in the shadow of the great Sphinx of Giza, which earlier glimmered in the light of guidance, which was how appropriate right up here. If you'll see, there's the Sphinx. And and there's the Sphinx again. You see them, they're both in the exact same position. But this is your higher guidance, this is your spirituality, and this is where you're coming out of now, which is wonderful. So it means that you truly are integrating and ascending. The symbol of ancient belief systems, the Sphinx embodies the keeper of secret wisdom. It is even compared to the devil in certain occult texts. Left for us to interpret, the enigmatic Sphinx of Giza, Stargate of Sirius, gazes at the stars without a hint of good or evil for us to dwell upon. No doubt, however, that its reappearance in the shadow key suggests that good and evil are in the eye of the beholder and the intention of every individual. The attraction between the two people is palpable. Are they enslaved by their passion and desire? They have only to lift off the gossamer web of the spidery net and they are free, and yet they do not. They appear to be willing prisoners in the web we may very well consider to be their own design. Um, as tools for exploring these aspects, it serves to show the starseed that it is only our fear of lack that keeps us enchained to the lower energies. We only have to brush away the cobwebs, understanding how we created them in the first place to be free. So this is now what you're coming out of. So you have now, I believe, come to the realization, which is a very interesting card. The next card that bridges you from the past to the future is the card of reason, which is the emperor and the normal major arcana. So in here, he has like trying to see what exactly he's holding in his hands, but he has the sacred geometry above him. And I think that that totally links in with your arcane knowledge from that time period regarding this information that was found and brought back by the Templars. And it says, from the flowing abundance of the key that precedes it, there is a natural segue to the key of reason. After the Great Mother, in all her limitless creative expression, starred seed is met by her male counterpart, the Good Father, who brings order and structure to the dynamic energies. He is her complement, rather than her polar opposite. To her artistic design, he brings structure. Here is a noteworthy figure of authority seated on his throne. He clearly he is clearly one to go to for the last word, father to the child, ruler to the kingdom. Um, Above his head, the 5 Platonic solids appear, holograms of his reasoning logical mind. These are the fundamental forms of sacred geometry, cosmic figures that scholars Plato and Pythagoras have depicted as the shapes of the elements. According to Plato, the tetrahedron represents fire, the octahedron is air, the cube is earth, the icosahedron water, the dodecahedron corresponds to the ethers, which is, of course, the Akashics. Reason contemplates bringing structure to the creative flow of an imagination and being grounded in reality. When reason appears in your meditative or divining process, the question arises as to how you are either lacking or bringing structure into your life. The key is a teacher to the impulsive child, the kind and loving aspect of the male authority who can be that voice within you, and or it could be an actual person who exudes a certain rulership over your life. It is reasoning, logical mind seeking to give impulse, creative flow, a structure within which to manifest reality. So, how are you using your reason to take yourself from the shadow to what is known as the alchemy card? Now, the alchemy card is the 14th, and so it's just before the devil. And I believe that this is, if I am not mistaken, the temperance card. And and it's actually really interesting that it comes out alchemy, because those were the things that you were studying back then when they brought the information back from Jerusalem. Um, the alchemy process of transmutation, whereby elements are combined to create new forms. So here you have the reason of the forms of the sacred geometry, and now you're going to put them all into practice. You're going to use them to create what it is that you're wanting to create. Where is it that you want to go? And it says that the alchemy key employs the magical process of glass blowing, whereby the four primary earth elements of air, the breath of the glass blower, water dripped from above to cool the glass, fire melting the glass, and earth, the silicates that melted form glass, are combined to create the new form, a beautiful blown glass sphere. The alchemy key is rich in meanings and can be interpreted on many levels. On the one hand, it is about blending different elements with patience and skill to create desired outcome or new form. On the other, it speaks of balancing aspects in our lives in order to move forward. For some, it is key to spiritual healing, building from the previous key of death versus immortality, which you have the rebirth, and how we may learn from our great grief and fear when we embrace our own infinity. So it's how are you going to blend everything together now to create this beautiful new form? Just amazing. I just think it's wow. I'm blown away. Now, I pulled three cards from the Art of the Eyes of the Soul. I'm going to put them here in front. The first card I pulled for you, it's called the Fairy Goddess Mother. Magic is alive. Ask your divine child. So it's telling you to ask your questions with a sense of lightheartedness. Adopt the enthusiasm of youth to open to the free flow of ideas and the answers from your guides and guardians. Keep your childlike sense of wonder and imagination alive while living in the world. This, as you well know, as being a teacher, you know that working with children, we discussed this in in our monthly mentoring, how important that is to you, and that to use the divine inspiration of the divine child within you to to invent what you knew always existed, to bring it into form, and it's going to bring you to higher planes. Now, the next card that I got for you, it's called Maka, lifting the curse of war, lift the curse, forgive. So there's something that you are now um, allowing the divine feminine within in you to resolve any conflicts, um, to bring about a peace within your world and for the world in general. It's more or less working on forgiveness from within. And once you have that, then you will then progress to being this master. It says the master in Tibet, become the master you seek. I've actually never gotten this card before, so I'm going to have to read from it because I really never seen it. It says you are a divine being. Internalize this knowledge and allow it to inspire self-confidence and inner strength. What you search for may not be what you find. Realization that the power of the universe is within you is the fulfillment of the quest. This power is at your command to create and build with, and to find solutions to the most difficult challenges that you encounter. Looking outside of oneself and expecting someone or something to do all the work for you is going against cosmic law. We must all use the gifts we have been given and be actively engaged in developing them in our own life process for for other assistance to appear. So you have whatever's within you. So look to this childlike divine and guidance within you. Look to forgive yourself and others, and then become the master that you seek. So beautiful. I mean, just wow. So many things here. You're going to have to go back and listen, but we start with our transition. We have the base of strength of the combining of the divine, feminine, and masculine. We have the guidance of the hierophant, the teacher, and the student. You're coming out of the shadows, which are of your own creation, to understand with reasoning and the sacred geometry how to create in the alchemy all that you desire. Beautiful. Oh my gosh, Sylvie. I know that this has taken me a while to do for you, but today I was inspired, and I'm so glad. You have to go with the flow and see, what you feel like doing. So I'm so glad I waited. I'm so glad I now know our connections. I just have to hear all your comments. So I know you're going to be exuberant about this, because really it's quite fascinating to everything, and I just want to hear how it resonates with you. So I send you many, many blessings, my sister, in light and love. Namaste.